Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. Each episode will bring you in-depth discussion with experts, community leaders, and analysts who will share their insights, experiences, and predictions. From local elections to global diplomacy, we'll provide you with the tools and perspectives you'll need to navigate today's real-world landscape.
Welcome to Straight Shot Politics. I am Lisa Chafee.
And I'm Michael Nash.
Hey, Mike, on August 3rd, we had the pleasure of attending the Union County Republican Party annual Summer Farm Fest.
We did. It was a great success, and we had an awesome time meeting our elected officials, such as Secretary of State Frank LaRose
and Treasurer Robert Sprague,
Auditor Keith Faber, and two, not one, but two Supreme Court Justices, Pat Fisher and Dan Hawkins.
I love both of them. Wonderful men.
Yes.
We also spoke with Senate President Rob McColley and our illustrious Attorney General Dave Yost and his incredibly talented wife, Darlene.
I love Dave and Darlene. They're great folks. Really enjoyed spending time with them.
Yes, me too. This will be one of several episodes. We had a great time interviewing our guests, and we hope you enjoy listening. Welcome to the discussion, Senator Rob McColley, who is current president of our Ohio State Senate. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Now, you've been in this position since, January now, correct?
January, yep.
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. We have a great caucus in the Ohio Senate. We have a lot of good people who are there who are giving up their time and their talents to make sure that Ohio is in a good spot. So it's just a pleasure to work with good people. Good people make me look smarter. So that's always a good thing.
So there's a lot of talk about tax reform, property tax reform. So talk to us about what you're working on, what side of things. And then one big question that I have is, if we eliminate property taxes, then what?
Yeah. So we included some key reforms to property taxes in our operating budget that I believe are overdue and necessary. So I'm going to go down a rabbit hole a little bit here.
Please.
And kind of talk a little bit about the history of property taxes in the state of Ohio. And so when the property taxes were put in place, they were supposed to be largely anti-inflationary. You would have your 10 inside mills that everybody would have. A mill is a $1 for every $1,000 of assessed value. Okay, your assessed value is not your market value. It's 35% of your market value. So on a $100,000 home, 35% of that is $35,000. $1 for every $1,000, that's 1 mil would equal $35 in property taxes. Okay, so that's the way it was supposed to work. And those, as a revaluation would occur and the value of that home might go up to $110,000, then you would see a little bit of an inflationary adjustment when the revaluation would occur. And so the way that was supposed to work, though, is that 10 mills was supposed to be divided among the political subdivisions way back when they put it in place. And the millage outside of that the voters decided to approve for a school district or a fire levy or anything like that was largely supposed to be anti-inflationary. So let me give an example. Let's say that you were getting $1 million from your inside millage and you were a school district. And you went to the voters and you said, I want another $500,000. We need it for operations. The voters said yes. So you're collecting $1.5 million total. Let's say a revaluation occurs of the 10 inside of the property in the school district. The 10 mil number grows as the thousands of dollars of value grows. And all of a sudden 10 mils now yields $1.2 million. The way the system was supposed to work is you were not supposed to collect the 1.2 plus 500. You were supposed to collect the 1.5. So the 1.2 number would go up. That'd be your inside millage you were collecting. And then the 500,000 on top of that would be readjusted. The millage would be reduced to get you to the roughly the same total number. That's the way it was supposed to work. Now, if you were at the floor, you would have received the inflationary adjustment. So fast forward, we created the 20 mil floor for school districts where they're getting 20 mils at the very least. And it was supposed to work the same way. If you had extra money you were collecting on top of it, that number would be reduced if your other number went up. And so that's how it was supposed to work. through the course of time, and I'm willing to admit this in part because I believe in the accountability, but in part because I wasn't here when the votes were taken, the legislature screwed this up. The legislature created all these exemptions and loopholes and different things to allow somebody to have their cake and eat it too. And so under that example I gave earlier, where let's say a school district is at the 20 mil floor where they're only collecting, or they're supposed to only be collecting 20 mils, but effectively they're collecting 27 mils, okay? And they're collecting that $1 million. They're getting $500,000 on top of it, we'll say, again, same example. Now there are loopholes in place, depending on what levy they put out, that would allow them to go to that $1.2 million after an increase and still collect the full $500 on top of that.
God, it feels like robbery.
That's where you're seeing the unvoted, unanticipated tax increases across the state. And that's really to me, one of the most fundamental issues that needs to be fixed. So we have about 610 school districts across the state of Ohio. 200 of them are truly at the 20 mil floor, okay? No complaints about that. They're doing what they need to do. They're only collecting the minimum. There's probably 250 to 260 that are quote-unquote at the floor, meaning they're collecting over 20 mils, but they're still getting that inflationary increase as if they are only collecting 20 mils. And so those are the school districts that are using these loopholes, they're using these exemptions, et cetera. And frankly, I'm here to say I don't even blame them. They didn't set the rules. The legislature has screwed it up over the last probably 4 or 5 decades when they put this together. So it is our duty, however, to fix it.
Right.
And so we've sought to do that in our operating budget that we went forward with. Number one, we did a few things. We empowered local government through their own elected officials through what's called a budget commission. In the form of their county prosecutor, auditor, and treasurer to take a closer look at these levies when they're proposed and when they're being collected and potentially roll back the millage if somebody's carrying over a large amount of money. Okay, so we empowered them to do that. We also got rid of a lot of these levies that are being abused, emergency levies. I'll give you some examples. There are school districts all over the state that have had emergency levies on for 30, 40 plus years. What is the emergency, especially when some of these districts are carrying over 80+% year to year?
And millions and millions of dollars in their coffers, and they still want to go for more.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another thing that we tried to fix. We also said if you're carrying over 100%, you can't add another levy to collect more millage. Common sense. A lot of common sense things to try to get it back to what it was supposed to be. The anti-inflationary model where you, the voters, had the choice whether your school district was going to collect more money, not an unvoted inflationary adjustment that, especially as we've seen with the revaluations all across the state, has yielded in some cases 30, 40, 50% increases in people's property taxes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, mine went up. I'm in Hilliard School District, and they're sitting on $91 million in cash reserves, and yet got a 6.9 mil levy passed.
Yeah.
And my taxes went up. And I know a lot of people they're retired. They can't afford it. They're literally having to either go back to work or sell their homes because they can't afford these taxes.
It's a kitchen table issue.
It is.
And that's the way I've talked to our caucus about it is, look, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is not an independent issue. This is an issue that even people who are politically agnostic and don't really pay much attention to this, they're talking about it. And in my career doing this, whenever there's a kitchen table issue, you better be sure you're on the right side of it. So that's what we've tried to do. And unfortunately, the governor vetoed a lot of our key provisions. I can tell you right now, I've talked with our caucus. We have the votes to override those vetoes, and we plan to do so.
Now,
and by the way, thank you for doing that. Thank you for having the courage to gather everybody together and getting everybody together to go veto and go override that veto.
To override,
override the veto.
So the House has already overridden one veto, and that was, I believe, what the percentage that schools are allowed to have in their coffers. Is that correct?
No, that they did not override that one. They overrode a different veto. There were 3 vetoes that they were planning to override. They overrode one of them.
Okay.
And so, and I believe it was the one where they eliminated a lot of these often problematic levies that allow for the loopholes and allow for the gamesmanship on the ballot and things of that nature.
Okay. Did you have a question, Jim?
I'm good.
So what's next? What are you working on now? So
we're going to override those vetoes hopefully at some point here in the fall when people come back into session. I'm confident we'll be able to do it. We had talked a little bit before we went on about this provision that was being gathering signatures across the state to potentially eliminate property taxes altogether.
Yes.
I want to go on record and say that would not be a good idea for the state of Ohio, and let me explain why. I'm all about eliminating property taxes. I'm completely fine with that, but I'm not in favor of doing it, or I shouldn't say I'm all in favor of eliminating property taxes. I'm all about reducing tax burdens and things of that nature. But if we were to immediately eliminate property taxes, that's about $20 billion plus.
Right.
That is a hole that's going to have to be filled somehow, some way, to pay for local services that us use every day. What that translates into is probably, if we tried to fill the entire hole, it's an 18% sales tax, things of that nature. So I hope we can continue down this path and pursue more reforms that will get it back to the system that was supposed to be in place.
I think that's what a lot of people are confused about. And, you know, it's frustrating as a homeowner. You work hard, you save the money, you buy your dream home, and you get it paid off, but it's never really paid off because of all the property taxes on it. And so on paper, it sounds wonderful. Yeah, no more property taxes. But then what?
Yeah.
You know, so much of our taxes are used for, you know, for police, for fire, for emergent EMS, etc. So I think trying to do away with it altogether, like you said, would be a mistake. But we do need to make changes. We need to close the loopholes. We need better funding for schools, so they're not having to come and ask taxpayers to support that. So what do you think would be the best thing to do?
Well, we need to fix the broken system, like I said before. Try to get it back to where it's anti-inflationary, and that if they're collecting more money, it's because the voters approved it for them to collect more money. And so you're not seeing these inflationary increases that are unanticipated, and the sticker shock really associated with that when you get your tax bill in the following year. So
what is being one of the things that I'm seeing on social media? We had the budget that just passed. The funding for the Brown Stadium, which, full disclosure, I'm totally against. What are we doing to curtail the useless spending?
Well, a lot of what we're putting in place, like this property tax changes we made, a lot of it is put in place as well for more ballot transparency, so people can actually understand what the impact is going to be when they go in the ballot and they make a decision to vote yes or no. Mm-hmm. Part of that entails requiring the school districts to put their carryover balance on the ballot. That way you're not going to be able to go with over 100%, presumably, and get the voters to say, yeah, let's give them more money, because they already have plenty of money in their bank accounts. So a lot of it is just giving more information to the voters, which that's never a bad thing. Mm-hmm. We should do that more often. We should create more transparency. And so that will create a little bit more downward pressure on these local entities, particularly 70% of the dollars that you spend in property taxes, roughly statewide, go to school districts. And so it's not that I'm anti-public schools. I'm a product of Napoleon High School in Napoleon, Ohio, and I think I had a good education. But they also, just like anybody else, we all need to understand that we all need to be mindful of our budgets, and we also need to be mindful that the dollars that are coming in the form of tax collections are taxpayer dollars at the end of the day.
We also need to make sure we're getting a good return of investment.
One other thing on this is, I see it directly because I'm a township trustee. I am seeing the effects. We fund our police and we fund our fire through tax levies. And one of the problems is these school levies are making so much taxes, these tax levies are making so much money. It is causing us issues because, let's face it, Americans are taxed. They're
taxed to death.
Yeah, we're at their limit, especially when you have demographics that some townships have. They're seniors. They're on fixed incomes, and it does draw upon our fire departments and our police. So we Franklin Township, Franklin County, Ohio, we just had to shut down one of our firehouses. And the reforms is going to come, which you're putting in place for these schools. And it's very important for voters to understand. Levies aren't bad. It's how the people are spending the levies.
Yeah.
and how they're getting the levy. So the transparency, I see the transparency is phenomenal. And that's going to be a helpful, if we force these school districts and local governments out there in front to say, this is what we're going to do with the money.
Anecdotally, on occasion, we'll get somebody who calls into our office and they complain that their property taxes have gone up. And usually they've been sent there by their county auditor or treasurer to say, well, they're not the ones who said it. And sometimes we'll ask, okay, well, have you voted for any levies in the past few years? Oh, yeah, I vote for every levy that comes up. And there's, in some cases, I think most voters understand what's happening, but in some cases you even have some voters who can't draw the connection between voting for the levy and then the fact that their property taxes went up. So more transparency is a good thing.
Yeah, and that's why one of the things I insisted on when we put fire levies on is we have town halls throughout the township. Crazy thing is no one shows up. But you can't force them there, but you can always have the information there for them.
Yeah. So let's talk about income tax.
Sure. So we were very proud in our budget that we just passed that we're finally getting to a point where we are as competitive as anybody regionally on an income tax level. When I joined the legislature in 2015, we had 7 income tax brackets. The highest bracket was 7.5%. As of 2026, we will have 1 income tax bracket with the rate being 2.75%. Will be a flat tax, will be the lowest income tax in the entire Midwest. This is something that we're already seeing is yielding economic benefits and more investment and growth in the state of Ohio, more companies that are willing to come here and put their capital at risk in the state of Ohio, which of course creates more jobs and growth. That's what we want to see. That's the type of policy that we're pursuing, and so we're pretty happy about that. And what's more fair than a income tax rate that's the same for everybody at the end of the day? I think that's the message we're trying to send is we're open for business here in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, it's very frustrating that I know people who had an opportunity to get a higher paying job, but if they did, it was going to put them in a higher tax bracket and they would end up actually losing money. So I love this idea. We're all on the same level. It shouldn't matter how big your paycheck is if we all pay the same. So thank you for doing that. I'm excited about that.
Yep, happy to do it.
There was one other thing you wanted to talk about with us, the Fatherhood Commission?
The Fatherhood Commission. This was something that I worked on, and I have to admit it's an idea that we stole from Florida and some of the good work that they've done down there with Governor DeSantis and their legislature. We have what I would call a crisis in this country. A fatherhood crisis where fathers are not taking the accountability and being part of their kids' lives at the rate that they should be, quite frankly. And the research that's out there will show and suggest and point to the fact that kids who grow up without a positive male role figure in their house are more likely to have mental health issues. They're more likely to not graduate high school. They're more likely to be incarcerated. They're more likely to remain in poverty if they already are. And so there are things that we need to do to make sure we need to educate fathers that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present in some of these kids' lives. And it's not meant to demonize or villainize or vilify single mothers or even fathers who are not with the mother of their children. It's trying to get the effort and the idea out there that just be present in your kids' lives. The compounding effect of you being a present, positive person in your kids' lives is going to yield benefits for those kids for their entire lifetime.
Absolutely, you cannot. No one person can do it alone.
Yes,
you got to have a partnership somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a single mom, and I can say firsthand, even though not to get in the weeds, but Dad was not omnipresent, and it had a drastic effect on my son. And what the parents don't realize is the kids blame themselves. They think, what's wrong with me that my daddy doesn't want to spend time with me? That's what the kid, and that's where it just spirals down from there. So what will your Fatherhood Commission actually be doing?
Yeah, so we appropriated some money to it, $20 million to it, where it's going to give money to nonprofits because, look, if it were a government-run program, it's just going to waste money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at nonprofits that already have a track record of results doing this. Some of the ones that I've already talked to, and it's not my decision as to where the money goes, that'll be for the Fatherhood Commission to decide. But some of the groups we've already talked to are groups that deal with incarcerated men who are trying to say, hey, you're about to be released from prison. Go see your kids. Be involved in your kids' lives.
Yeah,
Make sure
absolutely.
that you are spending time with your kids, because even though you've been incarcerated, even though you haven't been there physically with them for a period of time, you re-entering their lives and trying to be a positive role model will have a positive impact on them that will yield benefits for years to come. That's just one example. But there are at-risk communities all over the state, and it cuts across demographic lines. Really, it's trying to get into those communities and trying to educate these young men in particular to say, be present in your kids' lives, be involved in their lives, and be a positive influence on their lives.
And what I love about that is, rather than creating a whole new government agency to do that, this money will empower local citizens who are more invested in the outcomes, and I think they will therefore be more successful.
Yes.
So that's wonderful.
I'm also finding fatherhoodcommission.com online. Is that the website you're talking about, or is that a website that's related to what you're talking about?
I'm not familiar with that website. So Ohio has the Ohio Fatherhood Commission that will be the clearing house, if you will, for these grant requests. The initiative is called the Responsible Fatherhood Initiative. So that'll be something that is the way that this is going to be implemented. And again, looking for groups that already have a track record of success is important here. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. There are people all over the country that are already doing this valuable work.
Love it. I'm very excited about Vivek Ramaswamy and his candidacy.
Yep.
How do you feel about it?
I feel very strongly about it. You know, I've learned throughout my time in the legislature, and particularly in my time in leadership in the legislature, we're limited in some ways what we're able to get done. We see this with the property tax issues where, you know, every governor has their own style.
Yeah.
I could say good and bad things about that I perceived, at least, about John Kasich. You know, there are some things I would do differently than Governor DeWine. There are some good things that Governor DeWine has done. But at the same time, if we're going to endeavor down a path of bold decisions that are tough decisions that people may not necessarily like, but they're the right decision, you need a governor who's willing to set that tone and be at the tip of the spear and provide cover for everybody else to make those tough decisions. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
in Vivek, I see that. And so, and he and I, this is one thing we have in common. When I went and I met with him at his house, he was nice enough to have me in his dining room. We talked about a variety of things. And it was funny because he'd been on the road an awful lot. He'd been away from his family. And like any young kid would, I think his son was 5, the one who kept coming in. His son kept coming in and showing his dad what he'd been working on that entire week. You know, the different drawings and different other things he'd been working on. And Vivek, like any good patient father, said, oh, yeah, that's great. Let me talk to you in a little bit. Go in the other room. And he kept coming into the room. And then all of a sudden, Vivek just said, all right, I'm going to plop him on my knee, and he's going to be here for this meeting. And I was there for it. I was fine with it because I have young kids myself. I have a daughter who's 10. I have twin boys who are 8. I can remember my kids probably would have done the exact same thing at that age. They might even do it at this age right now. But it showed to me, and at that moment it clicked for me, failure is not an option for Vivek Ramaswamy. Failure is not an option. He must succeed, because if he doesn't succeed, what state is he leaving for his children and mine?
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's the reason all of us who are in it for the right reason do it.
Yeah.
And he is on a mission to make Ohio, I truly believe it, a state of excellence, to leave it in a better position than it was when he got into office. And it's not just for him. It's for his kids and everybody else's. So that's
right there.
That's the appealing aspect of all of this.
He's not afraid to do the right thing.
Yes.
And sometimes doing the right thing, especially in politics, it's a hard choice because you are termed out, correct? So
at the end of 2026, I got to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up.
So you don't have to worry about getting reelected, but too many of our elected officials are too worried about the next election, and so therefore it may be the right thing to do, but let's say on education reform, the Parents' Rights Bill, DJ Representative Swearingen co-authored that bill without fear, but he took a great risk. So, and that's one thing I admire about you. You're doing the right thing because it's the right thing, not because it's going to get you more votes. And I think with Vivek, it's the same thing. And he's not beholden to the unions. He's not beholden to anybody except the voters. And that's what I love about him.
Yep.
If anybody would like to reach out to you about anything, since you're not on the campaign trail now, we've had all these other wonderful candidates here today, and they need help with their campaigns, but you're not actively running for anything right now. So,
nope, I'm not.
But as your role as president of the Senate, which God bless you because that is not easy, how can people find you?
Well, I would say first and foremost, don't be afraid to reach out to your state representative or your state senator. It's their job to get back to you and address some of your questions. But if they want to reach out to my office, it's 614-466-8150, 614-466-8150, or alternatively, they can reach out via the district inbox, which is McColley, which is MCCOLLEY, MCCOLLEY at ohiosenate.gov.
And you can find any of your state reps and state senators on the Ohio Legislature website.
Yes.
And you just look for their name, you click on their profile, there'll be a contact button. And I encourage people to do that and go there if there's particular legislation they're interested in. You can track it, sign up for the email notifications, and give feedback. You guys need to hear what your constituents think about what you're doing there. And you don't know if they don't tell you.
Well, you know, there's only 33 of us in the Senate.
Right.
We can't possibly be experts in all areas of state law that we touch. And so it's incredibly valuable when somebody who is an expert reaches out and says, hey, you know, here are some concerns I have with what you guys are doing. Here are some ways and some possible solutions to fix it. Because, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years, or I've been in this industry for 15 years. That feedback is very helpful, and so we do appreciate it.
Sir, Senator McColley, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so now State Treasurer Robert Sprague has joined us. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing great.
How has it been?
I'm terrific.
You're terrific.
Yeah, although they're going to start the puns.
There we go.
We're going to talk about tariffs, right?
We're going to be punishing this the entire time.
All right. So you brought it up, tariffs. Let's talk about these tariffs that President Trump has done. How are we benefiting from that here in Ohio?
I mean, look, I just think that the president is sticking up for everybody in the middle class and in the middle states. For a long period of time, all the jobs have gone to the coast. They've hollowed out the inside of our country. They took our industrial base. You know, we used to make steel in Youngstown. We used to make glass up in Toledo, where I'm from, near there, right? I mean, we have all the energy. We have all the natural gas. We used to make tires in Youngstown or Akron.
Don't they still make tires in Akron?
Honestly, I don't know. I think that for the most part, because they make tires in Findlay, Ohio, Cooper Tire and Rubber Company before they got bought by Goodyear. Okay. And I think that Goodyear only has maybe one other domestic plant in the United States. I could be wrong about that.
I think it's out in Kansas somewhere.
But, I mean, that's a big deal, right? I mean, because we're not making things here anymore as a country. And listen, you know, it sounds good when you're the CEO and all you care about is the financial statement, and you got these other countries that are willing to produce stuff super cheap, right?
Right.
Because I can increase the profits. That's been happening now for 50 years, and our trade policy has let them do it. And as a matter of fact, our trade policy encouraged them to do it. You remember when Ross Perot talked about the giant sucking sound, right?
Yeah.
From NAFTA and these trade agreements with Canada and Mexico. And basically, Donald Trump is reversing this entire thing. And he's the only guy that's been willing to stick up for us, essentially, the whole time that I've been an adult here in the state of Ohio. And I think that what's going to happen is a lot of this production is going to come back to the United States because these countries are going to be faced with two choices. Number one, they can pay the tariff, all right? If they pay the tariff, guess what? We're bringing those jobs back to Ohio. We're bringing that manufacturing back to Ohio. It was always the backbone of our economy. All these small manufacturing, right? The tool and die stuff, all the steel stuff up in the northeast part of the country. and then all the cars in the northwest part of the country that were attached to Detroit, and then National Cash Register down in Dayton, and then you had all of the livestock and the food down in Cincinnati and the distribution point for that. This has always been our heritage, has always been our strength. And we have suffered the most over the last 40 years as all those jobs have gone overseas. It's been us in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and it's been us, right? And all the jobs have gone out to the coast.
So they don't call it the Rust Belt, right?
And then they give us a nasty name.
Yeah.
All right. And listen, I think these tariffs are long overdue. It's time that these other countries paid. They paid for the security that we provide them. All right, we provide a security umbrella for all these other countries. They never pay us anything for it. Matter of fact, you know what? They take advantage of us. They take advantage of us.
Which has been tariffable, actually.
Oh, Lord.
It has
Tariffable?
Been tariffable. Yeah.
Well, Donald Trump thinks it's tariffable, but he's doing something about it, and that's what I love about him, right? And here's the thing. Honestly, when he started doing this tariff stuff, I thought there's no way this is going to work. There's no way he's going to get these other countries to come to the table. He did it.
Amazingly so.
Yeah.
Right? He's got an agreement with Vietnam. Who would have ever thought? He's
Right.
got an agreement with England. He's got an agreement with the European Union now. I mean, all these countries are coming in. Why? Because it benefits them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you're the European Union, right, and you said, we will pay 15% tariffs, what that means is, even though they don't like it, they're getting more of a benefit than what the cost of the tariff was, right? Which basically proves the point that we have been supporting these other countries for a long period of time, and not always our allies, like the European Union.
Right.
The European Union, in a lot of cases, are enemies. So what we're doing in the State Treasurer's Office is we're going to use our $25 billion balance sheet. We're setting up a brand new program that's going to help Ohio manufacturing firms bring jobs back to the Buckeye State. It's going to be really fantastic. So we're working on it right now. I watched the One Big Beautiful bills that went through. I think that's a good thing too, right? Now listen, people are really coming after Donald Trump because of the deficit, right? The deficit, the United States deficit, all this, we're spending too much money and so on. Even though we had Elon Musk and they were doing the Doge and they were cutting a lot of the bureaucracy in the deep state. But you know what? In June, you know what happened? In June, for the first time in a long, long time, our country ran a surplus. The federal government ran a $27 billion surplus.
Wow.
It's working. He deserves an enormous amount of credit. I think John Husted deserves an enormous amount of credit. Bernie Moreno, right? He's a businessman. He went to D.C. to shake this up, try to fix it, and they're doing it. And now we've got no tax on tips. Why is that great policy? First of all, if you're a waiter or you're a waitress in the service industry, it immediately puts more money in your pocket. I love that because I think they deserve it, number one. But you know what? It's also good for all of our small businesses because ultimately that tax is a tax on payroll, and payroll is the biggest portion of any business, labor. So it really is a tax on production.
Yeah.
So by getting rid of that, you're actually helping out not just the waiter and the waitresses and everybody else that's in the service industry, you're also helping out the small businesses in Ohio.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true of the overtime. That's a beautiful thing. Listen, our country was built on people that were willing to work hard. And if you're willing to work hard, you're willing to work overtime, I say absolutely, you should be able to take that home with you. And I know that not everybody is able to do that, but I think the no tax on overtime is a great thing. I really do. So I credit Donald Trump and John Husted and Bernie Moreno an awful lot for actually taking action and changing things for our country and in the United States of America.
So in talking about bringing jobs back to Ohio, was it a year or so ago, all the talk was about the Intel plant.
Yeah.
Out here in New Albany. What is going on with that?
I really don't know. I hope that it goes forward. I know. I think Intel's just struggling, right? NVIDIA and those other companies that do the graphical processing units, the GPUs, the GPU technology is what's used for the artificial intelligence, for the large language models, right? And Intel has built their business on the CPUs, I don't know if it's a computational processing unit or exactly what that is, but essentially it's different technology than the GPUs, and I think they're just really behind and they're struggling to catch up. And everything now is about AI. It's about the large language models. It's about being able to run billions of reams of data in milliseconds to try to get answers for people. And so I think more and more Intel is just struggling. We hope that they're able to make good on their promise to Ohio and build things here again, because at the end of the day, we cannot rely on China.
No.
We cannot rely on Taiwan. We cannot rely on all these other countries to import our chips.
Yeah.
We need these silicon chips to be made here in the United States. It's part of our national security.
Well, and I don't trust, granted, I'm not an expert by any means on technology and chips and stuff, but it's always been in the back of my mind, yeah, they're making these chips over there. How do we know they're not putting some kind of malware on the chips and getting it into our military equipment and things like that? That's a scary thought to me.
They can absolutely do that. That's a possibility of doing, because those chips and those things store a program on them, and then every time you go to update them, you have to flash them. When you flash them, you put a new version of the program on them, and you can build any kind of backdoor you want to in them whatsoever.
That's scary stuff. So you are in campaign mode because you are running to be the next Secretary of State.
I am.
And you're being primaried. Why should voters choose you?
Because we've got a great platform and great ideas, and you can trust me with the elections just like you've trusted me with your tax dollars as treasurer. I like to say to people, look, you can judge governments by two things: how they treat your tax dollars and how they treat your vote. Mm-hmm. So you've trusted me with your tax dollars, trust me with your vote. You will never be disappointed. We are going to make the Secretary of State's office one of the best in the entire United States of America. Here's the way we're going to do it. First of all, we're only going to let American citizens vote in Ohio elections. And we're going to verify citizenship before they get put on the voter rolls here in the state of Ohio. Because the reality is, it's all about registration. Making sure that things are accurate is what I mean. So if you make sure that the registration database is accurate and only real people and real Ohio voters and real citizens are registered to vote, a lot of the fraud on the back end, it becomes very, very difficult to commit fraud on the back end if you have a clean voter registration database.
Right.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is we're going to move to all paper ballots in every county for every election. So this is a piece of paper. Now it could be a machine-marked piece of paper or it could be a hand-marked piece of paper. It doesn't matter to me. As long as you can hold it in your hand, you can see who you voted for. And when you take it over to have it scanned in and tabulated, that piece of paper there is there for me to go back and do a paper audit after the election. Why? Because no matter what they do to the machines, if you've got paper to go back and count, you cannot defraud the election.
Right.
And so we're going to make sure that there's an audit for after every election, not just for accuracy, but also we're going to audit for fairness. And that's the third thing I'm doing. And you may ask yourself, well, how can you audit for fairness, Robert? Well, here's how you audit an election for fairness. Why are our elections in Ohio fair? Let me tell you, they're fair because you have a Democrat and a Republican that check you in to vote, that get out the voting machines together, that count the ballots together. No matter whether it's the inner city of Cleveland or rural counties like here we are in Union County, Democrats and Republicans work together. That way, there is no lack of trust. But you can't do something untoward when somebody else is right there from the other party watching what you do.
Exactly.
So we're going to create an audit for fairness, the first one of its kind. We're going to audit for bipartisanship to make that bipartisan chain of custody for your vote is never broken, whether it's here in Union County or anywhere in the state, from the time when you cast it to the time when it's counted later on that evening. And then the final thing is I'm going to be the state's chief leader, chief cheerleader to return civics education to our K through 12
Amen.
kids.
There we go.
All right, because I'm afraid that a lot of kids are growing up to hate our country.
Yes.
And they're learning that, and they don't know how to participate, and they don't want to participate. It is shameful, and we have to do something about it. As Ronald Reagan always said, this freedom is not passed down from one generation to the next. Every generation has to fight for it, and we've got to educate our kids, and I'm looking forward to working with Governor Vivek and working on this civics education platform to make sure that we restore that to our kids here in the state of Ohio.
Well, I honestly think before anyone can graduate with that high school diploma, they should have to pass the same test that non-citizens take to become citizens, the citizenship test.
100% agree. I think that all these kids, look, and that's a good thing, because our school system is morphed. It's changed.
Big time.
Now listen, when I was growing up, you know what the point of the school system was? It wasn't necessarily to make you a college student. It wasn't to make you ready for the workforce. You know what the point of the school system was? It was to build great citizens.
Yes.
So we got a lot of art, we got a lot of music, we got we got critical thinking, we got debate. You know, I mean, that's the way we were trained when I was growing up, and I want to see that return to our state, because at the end of the day, I'm afraid that they've cut a lot of the civics education out of the curriculum and out of the time that the kids are spending.
Absolutely. Now about sort of voting, back to that, mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots, we hear about this in other states and the United States, but here I don't hear about it as much. And that's because we're not taking as many mail-in ballots in, or is that just because the way we're counting them?
I think we do a good job with the mail-in ballots. We're going to have a conversation just to make sure. We want to make sure that, look, I don't mind people voting mail-in if they're a real person. I think we've got to be really careful of this fraud, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, over in the Middle East, you're talking about the future existence of Hamas, Israel, Lebanon, Syria. You think these countries wouldn't want to affect our elections? Because literally, these elections are going to decide whether or not their countries continue in the future.
Right.
So I think there's just a tremendous incentive for countries to want to manipulate and try to influence our American elections. So we've got to come up with ways to make the absentee voting fair. And I don't want to cut off access to the ballot box, but you got to be able, and we will develop these processes. You got to be able to prove that you're a real person and that you're a United States citizen to be able to use that process.
Well, I think a cool thing to do, if you're going to mail in your ballot, is have a way to put your fingerprint on it.
Yeah, they've done that, and I think Iraq was the first place that tried that. Like when Iraq became a country again, I saw how people were saying they voted because they dipped their hand in blue ink or something, or dipped their finger in blue ink.
You just have to be fair. So, since you're in campaign mode, if anybody would like to help you with your campaign, how can they do that?
You can volunteer. Just go to www.spragueforohio.com. And you can sign up there to volunteer. We would love to have you. It's an exciting time. And listen, I got to tell you, I think Ohio is a state on the rise. We're enjoying a renaissance here, and we've got great leadership.
Renaissance Festival?
Renaissance Festival, all the way from the top of the ticket,
there we go.
All the way to the bottom. And it's an exciting time to be part of the Republican Party.
Wonderful. So you have the primary in May. So we wish you the best of luck on that. We're going to have you on again later to do a whole show just for you to talk about your platform.
Absolutely.
So we'll do that soon. In the meantime, sir, thank you so much for sitting down
and
talking with us.
Come in and talk to us today.
We appreciate it.
This is great. I'm looking forward to the dining room, all right?
So
next time.
Well, then absolutely. You're more than welcome to come and experience that whole quietness of a treated, proper studio with us.
Love it.
There you go.
All right, looking forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us. This has been Straight Shot Politics.